talking here cuts and bruises.
On BBC Two now, Stirling Moss relives his motoring moment of 1955 on the 1,000-mile Italian road race, the Mille Miglia.
Good morning, sir. I've been following you along this road where your speed has been far in excess of the statutory limit. Who do you think you are, Stirling Moss?
There is this boyish Englishness about him that perpetuates the legend, plus, of course, the daring. If he lives, prophesied the great Juan Fangio, he will be the finest racing driver the world has ever seen. Stirling Moss lived, surviving one horrific accident, to justify that accolade.
Oh, hi, Ian. Come in.
Hi, Stirling. Hi.
Excuse the bike.
40 years ago, as the honours piled upon him, he was my hero. 40 years on, nothing has changed. But it must be said that an invitation to his home in Mayfair to play with dinky cars was the overture to a small adventure that periodically was to put such staunch idolatry to the test.
722, that
Yeah,
might be
but I'm
too
just looking at the windscreen here.
Yeah, no, let's put on my glass.
722, the Mercedes 300 SLR, was the most famous car Stirling ever drove. For in it, he achieved what's acknowledged as the most consummate victory in the history of sports car racing, the Mille Miglia of 1955. Only 2 years later, after 16 deaths in a single race, the 1,000-mile Mille Miglia over open roads was banned by the Italian government. But in 1955, Mercedes had contracted Moss to make an uncompromising assault on the speed record. Moss recruited Dennis Jenkinson, the meticulous Jenks, as navigator. For weeks, they rehearsed on the trickier sections. The result, after 1,000 miles of country roads, mountain passes, major cities, and tiny villages, victory at an average speed of 97.95 miles an hour.
I don't want to say it's no good, but this one, you see, on this one you start it, and you stop it on this one.
37 years later, Stirling asked me, "Can you work a stopwatch, old boy?" Stirling calls everyone old boy, including, sometimes, women.
It then has registered here what it was. In other words, it was four.
He wouldn't take no for an answer, nor would he be deflected by my admission that, as a wartime navigator, I would probably have bombed Newcastle instead of Hamburg. Stirling can't believe that some of us are technically illiterate.
Yeah. But fill me in a little bit. I mean, what am I going to expect? I know it's not the same race, but what can I expect?
Well, I hope you can expect, A, the pleasure of driving the car, because it is a stunning car. We probably will get bad weather, because when you're in an open car, it's sod's law, it's going to be bad weather. You're going to get some fantastic countryside, the enthusiasm of the spectators, nice people we're competing against, a little bit of competition. You know, in other words, we're going to try to get to the line roughly around time. If we don't, it doesn't really matter, honestly. And I mean, the point is, we're going to go and see. I want you to see how fired up the Italians get about this incredible memory of what was a great race.
So, on a fine spring afternoon, we found ourselves in Brescia, northern Italy, for the 1992 Mille Miglia, driving the very car in which Stirling had won in 1955. It had been brought down from the Mercedes Museum in Germany. Now, as then, Stirling was the main attraction.
Yes, Shirley.
Are you driving the same car that...
I'm driving, yes, I am. I'm driving the car I've driven before, the one that I did the race in, yes.
How do you think you'll do this year?
We'll do our best. I don't know how well we can do.
I found the collective we mildly disconcerting. I'd known Stirling almost from the time we both had hair, but did he realise what he was taking on? But then, even he had to present his licence to prove that he was still fit to drive.
Okay, fine, yeah.
San Marino.
The catastrophic death tolls of those early Mille Miglias meant that the Italian government would only sanction their revival as a kind of rally for vintage cars mostly driven by vintage motorists.
Are you ready, chaps?
These days, there are compulsory stops, and the speeds are much lower. Even so, Stirling wasn't to resist the odd burst of 140 or so, lamenting as he did so that back in 1955, they were frequently touching 175 miles an hour at 7,600 revs. Then, too, the race was a one-off dash for it. The one constant remains the distance. Still 1,000 miles over much of the original route, thus giving us the chance to desecrate such noble cities as Florence and Siena. Our navigational preparations had been somewhat cursory, mostly due to the overwhelming demand for Stirling's autograph. By the time he'd signed about another 500,000, the lovely Brescia afternoon had turned into a sodden nightmare. The rain simply hissed down as we edged up to the starting line.
I think it's absolutely wonderful. The only thing is there's only 1,000 miles to go.
Trouble is, I can't see a darn thing over here with these...
He's always getting me into this sort of scrape. That's the main problem, the visibility.
The visibility is difficult because I have to sit higher, which means I have to look over the screen because of the rain. And I'm a bit worried that the goggles won't clear. Yeah, it's not pleasant, let's put it that way.
Moss 7:22 perché partecipò alla Mille Miglia e partì alle ore 7:22 e quindi le rimase questa sigla. Tra l'altro proprio Stirling Moss stabilire il corso di quella...
Even so, the dominating emotion at this moment was of privilege. Privilege is getting something that money can't buy, and hitching a lift with one of the world's legendary drivers defines it. It was probably 20 minutes before this romantic notion wore off. The 1955 Mercedes 300 SLR has neither seatbelts nor roof. What it does have is a 6-inch windscreen whose configuration drives the rain remorselessly into the navigator's lap. Actually, the first leg down to Ferrara was quite exhilarating, though at one stage I did misdirect the Maestro 3 miles down a wrong road. Despite the ungodly hour, the locals turn out to give us the warmest of greetings, thus proving, I suppose, that there's not much else to do in Ferrara. But happily, no one's been killed so far, and we're here to snatch some sleep.
Get our toothbrush now. Thank God. Boy, was it wet. Was it wet?
Right, blow by blow.
Yes. Wet, man. Couldn't see a thing. Couldn't see a thing out of that. You know, I had glass goggles on, which of course is not good news. And so I couldn't use those, so I had to take those down. And of course you can't see through the windscreen. It was really bad news. I mean, I'm not kidding you. For the first, what was it, first 30 miles.
Well, first 30 miles were overtaken by two butchers' vans,
Yes.
Old ladies in cars. Nobody could see, absolutely blind. And then Stirling cheered up, and suddenly the weather sort of broke a bit.
Yes.
And he gave him a little vroom around the streets. We went straight up the wrong road.
Yes. And then got somebody splashing at us.
The master was not happy.
After a late-night drink or two, Stirling kindly sanctioned a recuperative scotch for his navigator, we moved out for the long haul down to Rome.
The going gets rough and I need to put glasses on.
Yeah.
I have these very sexy demon jobs.
Oh my God.
Look at that. No, you can't.
I can't just for the moment.
No.
We ace cameramen have got to be very careful.
I do appreciate this.
In fact, my aversion to all things mechanical meant that I'd never even held a movie camera before. To avert a crisis, a shrewd BBC technician taped down every appurtenance on it apart from the on and off switch.
There you go. We're off.
Narrowly missing a bus, we're on our way again.
A bit rough here and I'm very sorry about
That's all right. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's looking
Gives
good.
it atmosphere. Atmosphere. Keep the camera rolling, boy.
Yeah, I'm going to just leave it on there.
Stirling dispenses largesse with one hand and just about keeps us on the road with the other. The Mercedes is a monster to drive in heavy traffic. The clutch continually protests at low speeds, which is why ideally he likes to negotiate these conurbations at somewhere between 60 and 70. The novel sensation of taking built-up areas at speed was heightened by Stirling's sublime indifference to traffic lights at red. He generally assumes the same courtesies extended to ambulances and fire engines during the rush hour in, say, Wolverhampton. By now, my own inboard camera is functioning. In all modesty, I invite you to note the steadiness of the hand. Unlike the Mille Miglias of old, we have traffic bearing down from the opposite direction. Fortunately, I have one eye shut and the other jammed to the viewfinder when Stirling decides to go into the next corner with youthful bravura.
Boy, that was a lot more acute than I thought it was.
Yes, well, never mind.
Tell you
We got
that for
around it.
nothing. Do you see that wiggle?
I felt it.
Yes. That was a hell of a lot more acute than I thought. I can tell you that for nothing, old boy.
Despite the aberration at the last bend, there's no cause for fear. For one thing, sitting in the right-hand seat, you can't even see what's coming until Stirling swings out to overtake. But how often was he afraid during his career?
I didn't drive with the idea of being afraid, but if you go into a really fast corner, I'm talking, say, 120, 130, and you think you've got things set up and you touch a little oil, maybe, or there's a little bit of dust on the side and the back end or something goes. But then that is real fear, but not at the second it strikes, because when something happens, you immediately think of self-preservation. You say, crap, I'm in trouble. But when you've gone down the road another 100, 200 yards, then your stomach sinks and you think, Christ, that was close. I mean, you know, really, your hands feel a bit putty. I don't know, difficult to describe, but, and that's when I would just say, you know, thank God, because, boy, somebody helped me up there. It's a big bugger. I think it's made much safer. Racing today is very much safer than it was, which is a good thing. The trouble with safety in racing, of course, is it does bring a contempt of danger. And I can assure you, in the days that I was racing, I never had a contempt of danger. I mean, I'm frightened of dying. And I had been racing for 2-3 years, at least, before I actually spun a car. It wasn't because I was that good. It was because I wasn't going fast enough. Because I thought if I spun, I'd hit the side and turn over. And I was frightened of doing that.
My predecessor in this seat, Dennis Jenkinson, is not a hard but obviously impossible act to follow. Did he ever complain about Stirling's occasionally cavalier cornering?
No, Jinx never complained at all, but he had never been in an aeroplane at that time. Not for any other reason, but he was frightened of them. He was actually frightened of flying. And Jinx is that weird that when I said to him, how about going in an MG, he said, no, I wouldn't do that. I said, why? He said, well, I'd be frightened. I said, why? He said, well, I know how to drive an MG. But you see, he doesn't know how to drive an SLR, so he'd sit there, sort of tugging his beard, if you like, so, well, that's interesting, you know, 170 miles an hour, and it wouldn't dawn on him, maybe it's a bit dodgy.
La, 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 la.
In their big 1955 race, Jenkinson, signalling instructions from prepared notes, got it wrong only once.
One thing that I remember very well was we're coming on a flat-out piece, right? Absolutely straight, and there's a little bridge. Jinx gave me the flat out. Well, I was probably doing 170 to 180 and hit this bridge. Well, the bridge, of course, was a humpback, and the thing took off. I mean, we climbed for altitude, boy, and I can tell you, now there's a time I was frightened because there's nothing I could do. I didn't dare move the steering. Well, you take off and you don't know whether it's there or there, do you? And we take off, and the thing's in the air for a long way. I don't mean altitude-wise. I mean, it went up quite high, but a long way distance-wise, and we were doing, you know, a lot of knots. And it landed down, no trouble. But I tell you, I looked at Jinx, you know, like this.
Brilliant, brilliant. Don't do that too often, though.
Huh?
Brilliant that was, but don't do it too often.
Good.
We arrive in Ravenna, here to confirm the magnetism the words Mille Miglia still have on the great drivers of the last generation. Phil Hill was Grand Prix champion in 1961.
You understand?
Yeah. What do you like most about this event?
About this event?
Yeah.
about the fact that we are allowed to take part in an event like this on the public roads and seemingly do little harm and have a marvelous time at it. You know, I think it's a great tribute to the Italian philosophy.
Right.
10:24.
24, right.
That's about 9.
No, it isn't. It's about 4 minutes.
Why is my watch all that wrong?
No, it says 21. It's not 24. Watch is all right. It's just the guy looking at it.
Well, I'm afraid it is.
Yeah, but what I mean is, do we have to count it down on the next one?
Yeah, but we can take it. We can do it what we did yesterday, when I made that mistake. We can take it from the start.
Start of this one?
No, the start of the last one. Add the two together.
Start of the last one. No, we have not.
No, but we went off.
No, but you see, this is zeroed now. So
Yeah.
I'm going to have to start this here.
Okay.
With the guy's clock, if I can find his bloody clock. That's the problem.
The discerning among you will naturally recognize the navigator totally in control of the situation.
Which way do we go here?
Down there.
Yeah, Pratt in the middle of the road. Try and get them waving, get the old hands up.
In private, Stirling is quite a shy man. In public, he loves the crowds.
I mean, if one's honest about it, I like the fame. There are times when I don't want it, but overall, I mean, it's why I wanted to be a better driver. Yes, I do like to have a clean sheet of paper and be able to fight another man with a car. I mean, if it's fighting with a fist, I can only go so far. I'm not that sort of pugilistic. But with a car, at least, we're all equal. And until you meet somebody like Fangio, you've got a chance of winning. And I think that that is, you get a feeling of achievement. Hope you got that policeman saluting us.
Yeah, got it the whole lot.
That was good. If you got that, that was neat.
It was a different social life then too, wasn't it? I mean, one always got the impression, you know, you're always around with glamorous women and maybe boozing and champagne.
No,
How true was that?
never boozed. I didn't drink at all when I was racing. I did not have any alcohol at all other than just try a thing until I was 32 and had given up. Look at the bird, the long hair.
And ladies?
Oh yes, well I went out with ladies. I mean, that's quite a different thing. I don't think they're damaging to the health and to the wallet. But no, I must say, I think that ladies are a tremendous relaxation as far as I was concerned. And I think when you are living a very hyper life and travelling from one place to another and everything's on tension, and it is a nerve-wracking time, I think to be able to relax with a lady companion, I think it is something that to me was very meaningful and very important.
Well, I can only report that the 1992 Mille Miglia was as celibate as a Vatican convocation.
I realised that people who concentrate on what they're doing can obviously excel. And I was that keen on motor racing at the start that I would never make love with anybody a week before a race. Well, that's all right when you're racing every other week, but if it's every week, it becomes serious. So, you know, I mean, sort of Sunday if you're lucky. And then gradually, obviously, I could realise Mike Hawthorne won it, and he was living a lot more liberal life than I was with the drink and everything else. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous. I'm not enjoying it as much, and he's damn well won.
Do you normally flash through red lights like that?
Yes. Oh, on the Mille Miglia, on the retrospective as well. Obviously, on the real one you did, but on the retrospectives, the police really seem to fall in with it, and they're most helpful.
Do you still feel the same excitement?
Well,
it's a very much different event now, of course.
Completely different. I mean, nowadays it is just a nice thing to go on because of the enthusiasm of the crowd and the beautiful roads, and driving a car of this stature, you know. I mean, one obviously doesn't go nearly as fast, not corners or anything, but...
Well, you could have fooled me once or twice.
Well, we were moving on reasonably, but I mean, nowhere near what we'd have been doing in the race. I mean, I've been doing another 30 miles an hour. I mean, when you, for instance, a twin-engined aircraft in the year that I did, twin-engined aircraft could not keep up with the car. You'd see a twin engine and you could overtake it. I mean, they were doing 160, we were doing nearly 180.
Here, a film clip from the 1955 race illustrates the point Stirling was making. It really was terrifyingly fast.
It's a quite unique event. I mean, 1,000 miles with, I think, 600 and something cars entered, which means you had 700 or 800 drivers, of which there are probably only 50 or 60 who are competent. And when you start out, boy, you'd see burning wrecks and goodness knows what for the first 100 miles. I mean, all the Italian hairdressers with the go faster stripes and the headlights turned around, you know, had gone off the road and shunted probably. See.
For some campaign veterans, 1,000 miles is a distance too far. We were pampered by a Mercedes backup team, constantly servicing a car so historic that, if it were for sale, it would fetch minimally £10 million. This did not inhibit Stirling from hurling it down mountain escarpments to terrorise the villages below. Among the 313 entrants, there was a galaxy of classic cars, from this 1955 Jaguar D-Type to a spirited little Seata 750 Sport, brought over from America at the age of 45. At every stop, they shower you with gifts, sandwiches, wine, salami, sausages, all of which have to be crammed around the navigator's feet. Out here in the wilds, this supermarket provender could be your salvation. Unless, coming rather too swiftly round a corner, you hit a stroke of luck in the shape of an imminent escalope de veau.
Look at these children.
Oh, this is a good one.
With the calves still in mind, Stirling's reference to the children disturbed me for a moment. It was an unworthy thought, yet he does have this habit of putting his foot hard down over ancient cobbled village streets to the point where the inhabitants cringe against their letterboxes and crucifixes sway above their beds.
Well, Stirling, they've turned out to have a little look at you.
Yeah, all here. All here. Where's the car?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Grazie. Thank you very much.
That's it.
Don't turn it over here, Stirling. It would be embarrassing.
It would under film, yeah. Ghana.
Halfway down the Adriatic, it rains again. The helmets and waterproofs come out. We're approaching San Marino, quarter distance. Coming into San Marino, Stirling's affinity with Italians is gravely tested. I mean, he quite likes them, provided they don't crawl out onto main roads from the right. We all have problems, and Stirling's is now a clutch, clearly outraged at being dragooned back into service after a soft life in the Mercedes Museum. Other things are imminently to go wrong, and I fear they tend to involve my celebrated sense of direction.
This isn't right. No. What the f***? Why didn't you tell me then, you brat? What a stupid f***. Why don't you show me, you git? Which way do we go then? We're going the wrong damn direction, aren't we? Where do they turn us round, Ian?
I'm just putting this on.
Oh. I don't know. Oh. Put it on your head and then put it on. Put it on your head and then put it on, because I don't know where we are.
They must put it on.
What? Oh, look.
Actually, the problem was very simple. In a gesture of despair, I'd knocked the windshield cover off my microphone. Thus, momentarily, we were incommunicado, which, come to think of it, made practically no difference. Naturally, it now started to rain again. Chastened, cold and wet, one took comfort from the fact that there were now only another 600 miles to go. Unfortunately, we were now coming to the tricky bit.
Right. What should they be?
They should be, wait a minute, where are we? 320, 3 kilometres 20.
No, not the kilometres, the minutes, you I have no idea what kilometres I'm doing, have I?
5 minutes 29 seconds.
5:29, yeah.
4 minutes 59 seconds.
Yeah.
And 6 minutes 28 seconds.
Hold that, please. So I go behind that bloke.
I don't know. Guess he's signaling you up.
Hey!
Who's that?
I don't know, but she's walking the car, isn't she?
Right, Stirling, so we're into this test. What's the first timing?
I can't read it on there now. Something 29. I'm going to need your help, you know. What is it?
Okay, well, let me have a look. 6 minutes 29.
Right, 6:29. So what I'm going to do,
But I'm
we're right in the middle of this town. I'm going to try and go a bit quicker to...
Okay, well, it's a very tricky one because
it goes 1, 2,
Stirling is trying to do both the driving through this little place and the timing and to get the car right over the line at the appropriate time. He doesn't trust me to do it at any rate, but this is, I must say, we've given him a bit of a task here.
Ostensibly, the object of these tests is to put the car's front wheels over a series of lines to the required split second. However, there are other distracting hazards.
We're also going over a ravine at this stage, Stirling. If you could look at the road for a second, I'd be...
What?
We're going over a ravine. I've got a 500-foot drop on my side.
When you're a professional racing driver, you have to have confidence in your ability. And if there's a precipice at the side, or a wall at the side, or grass at the side, it shouldn't really make any difference. I mean, yes, if you go off, of course it makes a hell of a difference. But I mean, to you as a person who's driving, you should be able to get as near to the limit with a precipice as you would with a runoff zone.
This is going to be...
I'm going
to be accused of this.
Another 15 kilometres, 15 seconds.
Thanks to my now insatiable appetite for filming, Stirling does rather have his hands full as we approach the line.
8. I want to go on 11, and I'm 17.6, 17.7, 17.8, 17.9, 17.10.
Brilliant.
Well, I wouldn't say brilliant.
I
reckon I was just over a second down.
Maybe within half a mile of it as a trial.
Well, it's, you know, moderately good, old boy. I hope you'll feel sort of my...
Well tried, well tried.
Okay.
I'm going to get my glass of ink.
We've got another test coming up, haven't we?
Hardly one more.
Yeah, but I hope you've got it still light. Otherwise I'll never see my... Oh, mind you, on the next one, I suppose I can count on your assistance, can I?
I got the torch.
Damn the torch. Can I count on your assistance?
Next time you can. You did so well.
I need your brain, your calculation. Still in the next one, I hope we can have a nice meal, old boy.
Yeah.
I'd like some tortellini and brodo.
Right, I'd really like liver and bacon.
Would you really?
Yeah.
I'm old enough now to realise my threshold of fear is a lot closer, but I can kid myself I'm enjoying it in the same way I used to. I mean, when I go round a corner now, I'm obviously considerably slower than I was, but comparably I'm trying as hard as I did. Therefore, I'm getting the same sort of enjoyment.
here we are. I got it.
Yeah, we can't go in here for another 10 minutes.
Oh, this is it. Oh, I see.
Ah. Oh, this is a test tube, Pratt.
No, it's not.
It's a test, you idiot.
This is the final test. Look, where are we? We've done that one.
I don't care. We haven't done that one, you Pratt. Here.
What?
This is your go. This is a test tube.
Oh, now hold on. Let me just get my glasses on. Hold on.
Oh, I must say.
Oh, I thought we'd finished those
Yeah,
threes.
of course you did, because you're not concentrating. You've got a 3. I said you had a 3.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, now I'm going to take my word from you, and I'm going to tell you when we've got on the thing, okay?
You just rely on me, okay?
I will tell you when I'm going to go over the thing.
Okay, fine. Where you go.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Get set. Now! How long have I got for how far?
You've got 5 minutes 29 to do it in. These are all slow ones.
I'd like 1 minute 30 and then down from 20.
Okay, that's what you're going to get.
I said you we got one before this thing.
Wait a minute. Yeah, you did. What the has gone on here?
What?
What's gone on here?
Oh, what the hell have you...
I haven't done anything. I just switched it on.
You've been going 1 minute 50, that's all right.
Oh, is it? I thought it was the one that went that side.
1 minute 50 we've been going.
Okay, all right. 10 seconds now. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Now.
0. How's that?
Not bad.
Not bad.
We're going to try to get to the line roughly around time. If we don't, it doesn't really matter, honestly.
The right way?
You-
Just right?
I
Wrong
thought...
way, wrong way. Wrong way.
He did look a bit shocked, I have to say.
Stupid. He is, I must say, Coppers. That's good. Bloody
Italian.
bloody idiot. Bloody fool. He didn't do anything to try and stop me, though.
He's happy.
He didn't do a thing to try and stop me.
By now, it was the navigator who was in need of guidance, probably spiritual. This is always close at hand in Italy, though we didn't stop to ask the penance for the proliferation of bleeps now punctuating this program. The fact is that you simply forgot the f***ing microphone is always switched on.
This thing isn't even in it.
Giving bottles of water here.
You want one?
No. If they're giving a bottle of scotch,
Yes.
I'd be very happy. Yeah, it is. They won't
That's
go.
snow at the side.
Yeah, it is. I saw some earlier. Yeah, it's a lot chillier up here, isn't it?
No wonder my head's cold.
Suddenly and quite dramatically, the scenery changes. So does the temperature as the route takes us high up onto the roof of the Apennines.
Con voi, pur ora, vedi miei sogni.
1 minute 30. 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 1 minute
Perhaps, but with Torval and Dean likely to appear at any moment, I have to admit to a certain unease along this icy stretch. Safely back at sea level, we reached the halfway mark, the Eternal City.
Welcome to Rome. How are you? Can you tell us something about the race, the track? Did you have any problems and how is it that you came to such a delay? First of all, welcome to Rome.
We're late because we had dinner. There's nothing wrong with the car. We wanted some good food and it wasn't so good here last year. And the car went very well, but we got very wet and we couldn't see anything. But otherwise everything was very good.
Allora abbiamo avuto questo ritardo perché ci siamo fermati a cena.
Rome? Well, it might have been Dartmoor for all we saw of its treasures. But Stirling's happy. He's let off steam about Roman hotels, and now he has a dice on his hands.
Well done. You're travelling very close together.
Yes, I'm pleased you will.
Most rivals give him free passage, but suddenly one car throws down a challenge. To Stirling, it's more like a red rag than a red Ferrari. Fortunately, oncoming motorists can hear Stirling coming. Little bursts like that tended to make life tricky for Michael Wheatley in the camera car.
I've never been on the Mille Miglia before. Done circuit racing, never done a rally in my life. So to have competition for 3 days, even though this is unofficial, we've had our own little jolly going on here.
What do you mean your own little jolly? Explain that.
Well, I think we've had to keep up under certain circumstances, and all credit to this car, I have to say. And when we've had the opportunity to be behind Stirling, it's made one feel far more excited and probably better on the pace than one is without something to go for. And here we are now, we're slowed down by a police car, sadly.
Just for a moment, I thought we might learn the Italian for "Who do you think you are?" Stirling Moss.
I have had that happen, and it's a difficult thing to describe. I mean, I never know really quite what I should do. You know, what does one say? Yes, well, that's what Mum calls me, or I don't know. There's a place in Australia actually where there's a sign, because a fan sent me this, where it says, "You're not Stirling Moss, the speed limit is 40. Well, now I am Stirling Moss. Can I go faster? I don't know, and I've never been to this place, but it's very nice, I must say, because feeling that the public are behind you. I mean, the audience matter. They matter to me. I'll tell you, I don't mind admitting it.
Did the actual name help?
Oh, immensely, I think. Yes, yeah. I think I'll tell you that. I was very lucky, actually, because my mother was a Scot, of course. Her name was Crawford. and she wanted to call me Hamish. My father said, no, I'm afraid, no, I don't want my son called Hamish. Think again, my mother had connections in Stirling, in Scotland, that's why it's spelled with an I. And he said, what about Stirling? To me, it's been a nice name. I'm grateful of it, and I can't think of any other one that I'd rather have had.
One wonders what would have happened if Stirling's mum had come from Oktomukti or the Gorbals. By now, we're approaching Siena, and I fear a small altercation.
Yeah, I would have gone by now, but we're still waiting for our film crew to arrive. They're having a meal somewhere, so we have to wait now. We're now late. Can't help it.
But
Here they are, I think. I go and give them a rocket.
The truth was that far from lunching, the film crew had been madly trying to catch up.
What?
That's what it was.
If you can, go out now.
Yeah.
They had to be here by 3:20.
I said the last time we had to leave.
Stamp in Siena, okay?
Okay. Okay. Now they're coming with us, right? Yeah. All right, we're all together. Okay.
Genuine misunderstanding or not, Stirling is not to be placated. This was a fascinating insight into the mind of a great champion. At 62, the competitive instinct burns as fiercely as ever.
All right. Never been better.
I must say, what a mess up, though. They didn't even know where they were, they said. I must say, I said to Michael, do it with me in future, because, we had no idea. They were over at this other place. He said they left the car outside, but I don't know where they were. And we can't say, I said to him, you didn't come for the coffee, because they sent them a different way to ours at the thing.
Oh, well.
And I said, well, we waited outside there. I don't know how they got past us, actually.
I must confess that the maestro was not easy to live with for the next few minutes. The mood exacerbated by the prospect of a less than tumultuous welcome in Siena.
Right, that's it.
See, we're very late. Another thing, you see, there's nobody here to sort of...
No, but they'll be down in the square, won't they?
Well, I hope so. I mean, the point is nobody's been through 15 minutes. Or half an hour, actually, I think. So I think you'll find that a lot of people have gone.
Well, they may have done.
Let's hope not.
Right, yeah.
See, all these people are walking off. I mean, if you're going to watch a procession and the procession's finished, people go.
Yes, I take the point.
All for their stomach.
It requires a privileged proximity to see a hero as he really is. But how does Stirling see himself?
Living as a racing driver, going from race to race, the nervous, the tension, and I mean, you're not easygoing, or I wasn't easygoing. I don't think many are, because of the life it is. You've got to be very single-minded. You've got to be, I'm afraid, rather selfish, which is an awful thing. And I know I'm selfish, and it's a terrible thing. But when you're in a car, you've got to matter. And I mean, you're number one. You have to be, otherwise you're going to hurt yourself. And I think the different traits, the things that are required of a man who is top, maybe in any sport, probably, maybe, but makes that person a particular way, or has me anyway. And I think those are very difficult to accept and tolerate.
What about this then?
No, nothing like the amount. No.
Oh, that's not bad, that's not bad. Good old score.
Nothing like the view we had before.
Get signing the old autographs, sir. Thank you, thank you.
Happily, late though we are, Siena's Great Square is not entirely deserted. We drive on 100 miles to the next refueling stop. Stirling hasn't quite calmed down yet, to the point where it would be ill-advised to stand in his path. Evidently, the dereliction or otherwise of our film crew is still a matter worthy of further debate.
We go into the square, and there was nobody there. I mean,
What about the German crew? They came up to us last week.
No, everybody heard it was over, and they'd gone home.
Ancora? Non meglio?
Mach lieber 100 mal. 100.
German. Now?
Hello, Mr. Moss. Please tell him.
Well, I'm only the piano player.
I felt rather sorry for Michael Wheatley, a good driver who was certainly doing his best.
Oh, there. No, the mechanic. No, they lost you.
The mechanics, old boy, have been...
At once.
No, they haven't through the town where you were coming, so they didn't wait for them. But all on the road, they have every time we stop, they're there. For the coffee break that we said we'd have, they were there, and they changed all the plugs. We said it's got another 10 minutes.
The argument ended there. Stirling leapt into the murk and put his foot down so hard that we never saw the camera car again until the end of the race. It was a marvellous exhibition of driving, but unfortunately you won't be seeing much of it. For a while now it's all been rather tetchy. Does Stirling recognise this in himself, this man to whom life has been a race against time?
I'm far more extrovert now than I was, but the thing is, I don't know whether I'm the way I was or the way that you, being an interviewer, press, television, or whatever, have made me. Give you one example. I wrote a book with a great writer, actually, a chap called Ken Purdy once, and in it he put that I was a stickler for time, which is true. If I say, 3 o'clock, then I mean 3 o'clock. And when I read it, it made even more importance. And I suddenly thought, well, if it's been written, I ought to be like that. So even if I wasn't, I was, you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. And if you read something and it's about you, you say, well, he's like this, he's like that, you begin to think, well, gosh, I ought to do that. Otherwise, people who meet me are going to think I'm cheating them. It's rather like if you meet a comedian and he's not funny, you think, well, what the hell's he? He's a script writer. And so I find that one is inclined to drift into being what you, the press, or the public, whatever, are making you. So I don't really know if Stirling Moss is the way I am or whether I am a creation of others. I don't know. That's why I'm a bit schizo.
Not really. Stirling Moss was simply born to drive. Back in Brescia, after a 1,000-mile masterclass alongside a genius, you realise how few of us can drive at all. Forget that imposter belting down the M1, headlights flashing, at 110 miles an hour. Racing drivers, even approaching pensionable age, are a breed apart. Despite the heated moments, my admiration and affection for Stirling never waned. And overall, he was happy to be greeted back to the ample bosom of a familiar world.
Come on, you get something to eat here now. Good.
Quite what the role of these ladies was, I never learned. But clearly, they'd been to good finishing schools, because they never asked where we finished. 63rd, I think it was. But then, that was never the point.
It was very enjoyable because of everybody's enthusiasm. But the last test was not possible because the road was blocked. And I'm going to send Mr. Frankie the bill for a new clutch.
Coming up in a couple of minutes on to how we really came to be in the beginning. First, the final door on the Advent calendar.